Good evening. Today is Thursday, June 6, 2024. The time is 7 o'clock p.m. The meeting of the City of Greensburg Redevelopment Commission is called to order. At this time, please silence all of your electronic devices. And if everyone would stand, we'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Title VI information has been moved permanently to the city's website for reference. Surveys are still available at the back of the room and may be filled out and turned in at any time. Judy, would you conduct roll call, please?
Dr. David Weigel.
Present.
Darren Burkhart. Ken Dornan.
Present.
Mark Clustercamper.
Present.
Daryl Foley.
Here.
Mark Fowler.
Here.
Thank you. Excuse me. Next item is approval of minutes, our Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 regular meeting. Hopefully we've had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are not any corrections to the minutes, they stand approved as presented. First item on the agenda under old business is Mr. Jack Woods with Veritas Group.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So again, I'm Jack Woods, the Director of Economic Development with the Veritas Group. It's great to see you all again. I think last time I was here, we talked about the RFP and approved that to go out. And we've gotten one submission since then, and as I understand it, you opened that at the last meeting for public review. And today we're going to kind of talk about what we've done since then. I'm happy to answer questions. Before I start, I think Pete Olson, I had him join me. He's our Director of Community Development, formerly the Town Manager of Yorktown, Indiana, and he's gone through a very similar process. So I think I can answer a lot of the questions, but if we get into some real technical things about next steps in this process, I thought it could be valuable to bring Pete along as he's been in your seat and done this many times. So I guess with that, I'll give a quick update here. So we know we got one response from Ironmen. We've had a chance to take a look at that proposal. I would say it's pretty consistent with what we have seen across the state of similar projects, just in terms of scope of the project, budget, what the developer plans to bring to the table, and then also from the Reedy Redevelopment tax credit and then public participation side. So I thought that their approach from the capital stack and financing piece was pretty acceptable. The product itself, I think, makes sense from our view and what we had hoped to see when we issued that RFP. After we got the RFP, we scheduled a meeting. I attended with Darren and Daryl and the mayor and Zach a site tour of Ironman's property in Frankfort, Indiana. It was, I believe, the nickel plate apartment complex building, very similar to what they have proposed here in Greensburg. I think we were pretty impressed by the project itself. It's almost 7 years old, but still in really good shape. Internal amenities are still very modern, what we're seeing on par with what we're seeing today. So I think we walked away from that meeting happy, kind of with their capabilities, and that was one of their first projects. Some of the examples they shared in that RFP also include some of the newer projects they've done. So I think my sentiment, and maybe turn it over to Daryl here in a second, but I think that they're very capable and would do a good job based on what they've shared in their proposal. I think next steps, where we are today, I guess the other thing that I'll mention quickly about the proposal is it did meet the minimum offer price. So they have indicated if we are to accept their proposal, it would meet our $125,500 minimum offer requirement to be paid for that land. So today, I think the goal is to move forward with your consideration on whether you want to start negotiating a contract for that sale. That would ultimately be in the form of an economic development agreement. That would put terms and conditions around what this project would look like. Would cover things like the size of the project. We'd address parking, what that public-private partnership means, And then I believe once we have that contract established, we'd be able to convey the property. Pete, any other details on that process?
Yeah, I will just, I'll follow Jack up. As he mentioned, I was the town manager in Yorktown. We actually had the opportunity while I was town manager there to discuss with Ironman a project. We thought, similar to what I think you all have seen, was that they are a good developer. They've done a number of projects where we were good from there. As you move forward, ultimately, the goal is to get to implementation now. So moving forward with the economic development agreement will give you the opportunity to put into there some guarantees to make sure that they're performing their tasks on time. We'll also give them some resolution to some questions that they'll ultimately have. So this negotiation is based on them submitting a successful qualified bid for the purchase price, and now it's the goal is to go in and negotiate that economic development agreement so that you have a successful partnership.
I guess the last thing I'll add and tack on to Pete's comments, in addition to negotiating what the project looks like, that economic development agreement is critical. Should worst case scenario something happen, provide remedies for the RDC to take back control of that property. So it's ultimately the foundation of a good public-private partnership, and make sure that the developer is accountable, and then also the RDC is living up to their end of the agreement as well. So I'll pause there. Daryl, any other comments that you have since you attended that tour?
Just, I'll echo what you said. I was very impressed. I came away from there with a very good feeling. I think the one thing that was nice was Frankfurt, I think, mirrored our community very well, even right down to where there was a active railroad track near the apartment building. But you know, as far as the Ironman, they have a lot of ideas, gave a lot of suggestions, and I think they would be willing to. They'll listen to us and what we want. Now, with all that good stuff said, we still have somewhat of a concern on the parking.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the impressive part was they shared with us some of the solutions that they've had. Case in point was at West Lafayette.
Yep.
They had a situation kind of like ours with the parking, and they came up with a solution for that. So I think it would be a very good fit for Greensburg.
So I'll pause. Are there any questions for Pete or I? If not, Pete, correct me if I say this wrong, but I would recommend, if everybody's happy with the proposal from Ironman, knowing that it meets the minimum offer price, that the RDC motion to enter into negotiations with Ironman to develop that economic development agreement.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Thank you, Daryl. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Any other questions or comments about that?
I assume we'll let the same committee stay intact.
I think that
Been involved to this point since they're the most knowledgeable. That'll be there.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I think Darren's a good fit too with the knowledge that he has.
Remind me again, Daryl, how many units are there and how many parking spots do we need per unit?
I'm over 60 years old. Mayor, do you remember?
Was it around 80?
I think it was around 80 or 88 units, if
Yeah.
I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Pete's got a copy of our RFP proposal here. I want to say it was 1.5 is what the
Our requirements are
ordinance
1.5
Yeah.
units,
Okay.
so I think they're.
Yeah, they were pushing like 84 beds.
Yeah, 85 beds, so they got,
I think the
130
important,
roughly.
the important distinction at this point is that all of that is still flexible.
Yeah.
And that as we go through this next step,
Right.
that will actually
It's
be
gonna be
hammered out.
developed.
Those details aren't in concrete.
Yeah.
I think that's important to note, because one of the things that we've talked about on our trip was that this next step is not make it a done deal. There's still lots of approvals and things that have to be done by this board to actually finalize that. So once we start talking about units and parking and acceptability, and if there are any variances required from the city, then that will have to go through the normal city variance process, but we're not there yet by any means.
Good answer.
I would encourage you all, if there are variances, the sooner you can bring your plan commission in to start discussing that. And that's something Jack and I'll talk about ultimately, that at any point when variances start, what you want to do is make sure that you're keeping on a timetable along with them, because their project is driven on getting the project up and running as soon as possible. But you all are looking to make sure that you create that partnership, and you have some other boards that are going to be involved with that. I mean, obviously the mayor's got a good handle on it, but just something to think about.
Any other questions, comments? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
So I guess the last thing that I'll mention, knowing that motion carries, I'll reach out to Ironman tomorrow morning, give them the update, and then we'll meet with our advisory group that's been involved so far with Ironman to start discussing what that economic development agreement looks like.
Great, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Moving on to new business, our next person is Dept, Main Street, Greensburg.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Allison Beck, and I'm the Executive Director of Main Street Greensburg. We are a public-private entity that was founded in 2005. We serve our historic downtown through our four-pronged approach of economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization. We were very lucky to just receive $25,000 in funding from Honda to launch an interior renovation program. I'll give a brief overview, and I believe you guys have the applications. We will offer a $9,000 reimbursement to business owners or building owners and only require a 10% match. The renovations must be energy efficient. They must remain permanent to the building. They can only be made for commercial use. The project has to be completed within 12 months. And again, the building owners or tenants are eligible to apply. And a little rundown of how our approval process will look. The business owner or building owner will submit their application. Our design committee will do a review of the applications, make a decision if there's multiple applicants of what projects will be most impactful or based on the longevity of the investment. That referral will be passed along to our board of directors. We'll award and notify the business, and then we will ensure that proper inspections are conducted before releasing the funds. So 39% of our downtown businesses do not own their building. We have 111 downtown businesses, and that does seem like a smaller percentage, but a lot of those businesses are LLCs registered to multiple addresses, but we still service all of them, whether they're home-based or multiple businesses to one location. Traditional lending can be very complicated for a tenant to invest in those tenant improvements, and we want to bridge that gap in our district and allow those tenants to go to their business owners or their building owners and say, there's a great opportunity for us to do $10,000 in energy efficient improvements for a grant. And with that, we would like to request matching funds. We have some great ROI data, and it's continuing to grow. This isn't data that we had looked at prior to 2023. We had some at the tail end of 2022, but we did see an increase in the private sector investing in our downtown district. For every $6.47 for every dollar of public investment, there was $6.47 of public investment. And we're hoping to see that continue to grow with improvements scheduled at 115 East Main, which is the Edward Jones storefront. and 132, 134 North Franklin Street. So those numbers are going to continue to increase. We're talking to a lot of businesses that have a lot of projects, in place. And again, we hope that this will strengthen our capacity goals. Our Economic Vitality Committee is working to regain our 85% or more of our downtown buildings being occupied by 2026. We're currently down to 79%. We want to see those storefronts full, and if there are ways that we can contribute, whether they need electrical updates, HVAC systems, plumbing, insulation, to help get those buildings utilized, we're excited to offer that to these business owners. We currently have a grant program in place for facade improvements. We have awarded $5,200 in 2023. In total, since 2019, over $26,000 in facade improvement grants. Last year, one of our $2,500 facade improvement grants contributed to the activation of 3 market rate apartments in our downtown district, which is really exciting. We have a lot of data that shows that we need those market rate apartments. And it also contributes to historic preservation, which is a big part of our functions. We contributed $2,500 to brick restoration and tuck pointing for acquisition development, which is that Edward Jones building. So this program will launch in August. We're going to start notifying businesses of the opportunity and how to apply in July. Our design team just met yesterday to discuss the implementation of that, and our first available application deadline will be September 15th. Does anyone have any questions?
Are you asking for funding or?
Yes, sir, I'm so sorry. Yes, we're requesting an additional $25,000 in matching funds for this program.
I personally, and I'm probably speaking for everybody, think that our improvements made downtown have been great. Where you go through a lot of downtown areas that are dead and dying, and it's obvious. We don't look like that. And so what's been done, I think is tremendous effort, and I would be in favor of supporting additional funds to that.
I agree with what Ken has said.
Anybody care to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Daryl?
Mark.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mark. Any other questions or comments? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, Randy Rogers with Reedy Financial has an update for us.
Yes, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm here today to go over the June 15th TIF pass-through reporting requirement. Do you already have the Exhibit A's and everything that was sent out? Okay.
Yeah.
So basically what we're going to go through today is we'll have a resolution that we have to pass, as well as get some letters signed. And basically what this is saying is just saying that there's not going to be any excess assessed value that's able to be passed through, because we're going to be spending at least 50% of all the funds or revenues that's coming in. So for the SR3 corridor allocation area, this is for 2025 as well. We're projecting that we'll receive approximately $1,267,749. Our total projected expenditures for 2025, we have at $644,511.12. And then we have that broken down by bonds, professional services, pedestrian connector study, utilities. So the percentage there at the bottom, if you look at line 5, is 197%. Since that's under the 200%, there's nothing to pass through. As for the other two TIF areas, the Heritage Hill allocation area, and the SR3 corridor residential housing allocation area. We're not gonna have any revenues, or we're not currently projecting any revenues that are gonna be generated, so there's not gonna be anything to pass through for those either. So, as far as the reporting requirement goes, that's pretty much it for me for today. Since we don't have those other two areas, there's not a whole lot for us to go through, so, did you want me to go ahead and give you these documents and you sign them, and then you can fax them back tomorrow or email them, whatever's best for you guys. I have the letter and the resolution, or I can just get them after the meeting, whatever works best for you guys, so. That's the resolution and all the letters there. And then did anyone have any questions for me, or you guys have any projects or anything coming up that we need to get added onto the financial plan or anything like that? Okay. All right, well, I will just, I can just get with you after everything's wrapped up and take those back and get them signed in. We will need to get those letters mailed out before June 15th, so as long as I get them signed tonight, I can be sure to get those all in the mail for us, and then we can also get them uploaded to DLGF and make sure everything's good to go.
I thought on the last presentation that Reedy did that they were missing some financial data for the new project. I don't know.
I know I had an extra. I had the Beacon Builders was still
Yes,
built
that's
in
right.
there. I've removed all that.
Okay,
So,
all right, yeah.
I believe at the next reporting requirement is when we'll go through the financial plan again, so I'll bring new copies with everything updated. I do have one copy with me, but I did get the Beacon Builders, all that's been removed already.
We have a resolution we need to approve. Is there a motion to? Thank you, Mark. Is there a second? Thank you, Ken. Those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We'll get those signed.
Thank you,
Brady.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is our Honorable Mayor, Joshua Marsh.
Good evening, everyone. I get to be Communications Director, Director of Public Projects, Mayor tonight. So a couple items. The marketing project has been ongoing. Brett continues to make good progress, I think, with that. We've sent him some ideas. We had a very good meeting with him a while back to sort of talk about what's next. You do have an offer for consideration that your committee, that is Ken and Mark, have reviewed. It is from Forge Fitness. They are interested in purchasing one of the smaller lots. That offer did expire before this meeting, but they did add an amendment to that, or an addendum to that, and that would make it so it expires tomorrow. I believe that they have offered full asking price, which is great. There are members of the Forge Fitness team here this evening, should you have questions for them. This is slightly different than other land deals that you've done recently, in that this does not come with the economic development agreement or discussion that was made with Liberty Lakes LLC or anything like that. This is simply a land sale transaction. This is fair and fine because we've done all the appraisals, we've already offered it before. This is still a part of that ongoing process. Is that fair? So it is up to you, or if you have questions for them. But again, I want to be kind of cognizant or cautious before you bring them up here. You are simply selling them the land. That's all the control that you have at this point. If you shall choose to decide what to do with it, it's in the board's hands.
We've had some discussion, because we wanted to kind of have an idea. They were willing to share a business plan with us. We also our committee reviewed the UDO requirements as far as the building, and I don't know if everybody got the business plan that came from them. It came this week. Zach forwarded it on, I think yesterday I got it. And they are proposing a building. It will have stone facade along with the metal, so it will be broken up. It will meet the UDO. They're aware they'll have a paved parking lot. So I think what concerns we had are not something we need to worry about going forward. And everything that they had within their plan seemed very reasonable for what we're seeking.
Is this privately owned or a chain? Privately.
If you come up and just, if you don't mind, so that we can.
Yes, privately owned by myself and Jason, the other owner.
Can you introduce yourself for me?
Oh, sorry. I'm Thomas Gregg, co-owner of the Forge. Yep.
That's it?
That's the only question I had. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Gray?
Which parcel is this?
It is the one that is on the south side, kind of in the curves.
It's the piece that's right behind what I call Harbor Freight Tractor Supply.
Okay, yeah.
It's like an
It's
1.1.
the east side of Broadway Private. And
Okay.
wraps back around over to Tractor Supply.
Is there a motion to accept the offer?
So moved.
Thank you, Ken.
Second.
Thank you, Daryl.
I think that that would imply that David signs it. Is that fair? Because somebody has to actually sign the.
Yes, it would be a motion. I mean, technically, what I would want, what I'd suggest in the minutes is a motion to approve the sale and authorized signature by Dr. Weigel.
Is that your motion, Ken?
So moved.
I second.
Second? Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Next item from me this evening is a piece of the puzzle, if you recall, as it relates to our process with the development of the Liberty Lake subdivision. The wastewater utility had some requests that this board agreed to honor as a part of that, which includes the sewer placement, and we did make those changes as we went through the UDO under the impression that this board would support the purchase of a track easement machine. They have provided you an updated quote for that. It's $55,000. It would be, I think the intention would be, it would be purchased by the RDC but given to the city, so it would not be the RDC's responsibility for it as a asset. It would simply go to the wastewater utility. I was very surprised to see that the price had not gone up over the last year, so that was a positive. But that is their request. It's spec'd out how they would use it and see. I would, for other reasons also related to this, it is a very specific piece of equipment. It's very unique. It's sort of odd, and so you do not have 3 quotes. You have 1 quote, and I think that this is what they specifically asked for. So I would believe that to be fair and fine.
I don't know. Is the RDC allowed to buy equipment as the entity we are, or are we better off to just give $55,000 to the city so that they can make the purchase?
Well,
Because we're just a fiduciary entity, so I didn't know.
you are. I mean, I do think as long as it falls within the recognized scope of development of, of economic development of a given area, but I would probably recommend that it's easier if you just say, we're going to agree to give the city the funds to purchase this. Is that problematic from an accounting standpoint?
I don't know the answer to that. I would counter your argument with, it is a part of the agreement to develop this neighborhood.
Well, I do agree with
While
that.
it is usable elsewhere, it is tied to that project that this board is
Yes,
partaking.
and you did agree in writing to this expenditure and this purchase. So to that extent, yeah, that
I don't know, I'm
certainly
just
fits.
asking.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Legal
illegal.
ramifications are.
Yeah, I don't think it's illegal to do it.
We can buy vehicles and cars and things, just like we can buy property, and I mean, we're allowed to buy personal property. The board is allowed to buy personal property.
I think you can just do a motion to approve the expenditure on that equipment.
I entertain a motion to approve the
Expenditure of that money for that equipment
And transfer to the city.
transfer to
and
the city.
transfer it to the city. Thank you, Ken. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Do you want me to comment on the letter, or are you good with that? Doesn't matter. From Chief McNeely.
If you want to comment.
Chief McNeely's asked the RDC to issue a very standardized letter of support for the police department to apply to the Federal Department of Justice for a COPS grant. We've done these in the past. There is no financial commitment. He just needs upstanding members and bodies of the community to offer letters of support. I would encourage you to do so if you would be so inclined. I don't think you have to vote on it, but if everybody is willing to do so, David can sign that. Anybody opposed? Great.
I'm all for
Okay, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda, approval of claims for June. We have claims from Reedy Financial Services, Veritas Group, Stephen Legal Group, Judy Kurd, Secretarial Service, JQQL, and the Greensburg Municipal Water. The total of all those claims is $7,614.45. I'd entertain a motion to pay our bills.
it. I move to pay our
Oh,
bills.
hold on, one comment. Mark, do we need to authorize pre-approval for the bond in July?
It's July
I've
15th,
got a
isn't it?
July 1 due date.
Isn't it July 15th?
One of them's the 15th, I think one is the 1st.
We paid the,
January, we paid January 5th, it says.
Okay.
So
I think we might be okay. I have not received bills for either one of those because they normally come to me, so I have not received them yet. But if we got by with it in January, we meet early in the month, so we probably should be good.
we'll meet July 8th.
Let's go ahead and pay the bills, and if we want to, we can
Okay.
make another motion.
So, I'll entertain a motion to pay our June claims.
And Mark.
Mark already did, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll second.
And Daryl second. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Our payment in January for the bonds was $268,003.29 to First Financial, and then for the HOTIF to Huntington National Bank, it was $56,274.46. So that adds up to about $330,000, which from reviewing our financials and our cash status, we won't have any trouble with that. So I don't know if we need to pre-approve.
Without knowing the deadline on it, I mean, I certainly think you're gonna be close. So, I mean, to the extent that you have substantial funds to cover it and you know roughly what it is, you know, I think you could pre-approve it to the extent that it comes in before your next meeting.
I think we did it last year in December. It was done in December just in case, so I think probably to err on the side of caution, let's go ahead and do it.
Somebody care to make a motion to that? You make that motion, Mark?
Somebody else
He wants me to make it.
Daryl made the motion. Mark, are you seconding?
make it. Yes.
Okay, the motion seconded to pay that. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. That takes us to the end of our agenda. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be Monday, July 8th, right here at 7:00 p.m. If there's no other questions from board members, our meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all. Board members.